Thank you very much. Quick check, can everyone hear me okay? Kind of sound-wise? Cool, thank you. So, my name is Anna. I am a serial entrepreneur in the imaging space. I used to work as a product manager in the luxury goods industry a long time ago, actually. And some of the issues or some of the topics that I've always been interested in is how you can actually convert an emotional brand message via different media. I did a master's degree in brand management and innovation management and wrote my master's thesis about how to actually convey the meaning of luxury goods and how to portray luxury brands across a variety of different channels. So something that really got me when I started looking into the topic of VR is the question how you can actually use virtual reality to bring something across that you could never actually portray by just putting something online. So why do I think this is so important? If you think about it, we used to have bricks and mortar stores. We had offline commerce, offline boutiques. Along comes the internet, and hey presto, we have e-commerce. So what comes next? Smartphones come next, and we have mobile commerce. So I think it's not a very far stretch of the imagination to say that if you present people with a new device to consume media, they will also start consuming things through those devices. What's the next device that's actually currently being pushed into the market? You all know it. It's virtual reality hardware and virtual reality headsets. Now, the interesting thing about the hardware component, or about actually virtual reality gaining traction in the market, is that you're always limited by two factors when a new device comes along. One is the affordability of the actual device, and the second is the content that's provided for it. As soon as both of these actually match, as soon as you get both of these connected, you start having traction in the market. And right now, virtual reality hardware is being pushed into the market massively by the manufacturers. The Samsung Gear is a very nice example because, as you probably know, with the Galaxy S7, they're actually delivering the Gear hardware alongside with it. So the manufacturers are pushing this into the market. We see stuff like Google Cardboard, which really allow the access to the technology to be driven into the mass market. So that's one thing. At the same time, we see apps such as Splash. Who of you has heard of Splash, the app? Okay, so basically, it's also a German startup that just got the prize at South by Southwest for the virtual reality area. And they democratize producing content for virtual reality by actually enabling you to capture content on your smartphone and then convert that to a virtual reality format. So stuff like that drives content production, which means that in a very short time span, we will see both the hardware in the market and the content being produced on all sorts of different levels. Which is why I think that it makes sense, especially for brands that want to convey a more emotional message than just having a 2D e-commerce shop, to start looking into this topic very soon. What we did was that, one step further back, my company is an imaging company. We have been around for 3 years, and I'll go into a little bit of detail about what we do later. But I also gave a talk at Fashion Week in January about virtual commerce, just a general concept idea. And what we did for that was that we developed an app, and I'll show you that in a moment. But let's look at what kind of components we need to actually produce virtual commerce applications. We need the hardware, obviously, and then we need to show a context. And I'm just showing this image as an example. I mean, basically, the lovely thing about virtual reality is it can be anything. You could be inside the showroom of your brand, if that's what you want to show. You could take your clients or your customers into a clearing in a forest. You could take them into an actual digital world that's rendered 100%, which basically means that you can actually take your customers, your consumers, your brand evangelists to wherever you want to take them to really show what kind of world they should be looking at, to really convey what you want them to feel. Because, I mean, I'm kind of assuming a lot of you have worn one of these. Who hasn't worn a VR headset yet? Okay, feel free to come and have a look at it after the talk. It's about immersing people and giving an immersive experience. And the more detailed you create that experience, the more you'll actually be able to grasp people on an emotional level. So whatever you choose to build and create as a world, that is really your key point. Now, of course, if you want to actually look at virtual commerce, not just at telling a story, you also have to present the products you want to show. And really, I think people are becoming more and more demanding in what they want to see. And the nice thing about virtual reality is that you can actually give them more information. This is actually where the whole thing started, because my company is a company that develops technology solutions for capturing products, basically digitizing physical products in interactive 360 degrees, and as a next step also in 3D. So basically, taking objects from the physical world and translating them into the digital, transferring them into a virtual reality, that's one of the key points that we do. And that's how the whole virtual commerce idea started for me. So actually capturing and integrating the product is extremely important. And then obviously you need an interface. So I'll show you how we solve this problem in a second, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about that, because I've been looking into that topic quite a lot lately. So by the way, feel free to interrupt me by throwing things or just sticking up your hand if you have any questions in the meantime. In terms of presenting the content of a virtual commerce app, you have different possibilities. In our case, we developed a specific app just because it was the easiest thing to do. But actually, right now, you also have options of using, for instance, a panorama or a sphere that you may capture and, for instance, put on Google Business View. Who of you has heard of Google Business View? Basically, Google Street View. Everyone knows Google Street View, right? It's Google Street View for interiors. So you capture a panorama of an interior space, such as this, and it gets uploaded to the Google servers. That's an optional thing, but basically, if you do that, you can then showcase an entire store or any environment online through the browser at very, very fast download times. That's the interesting part. If you're talking about an app, you always have to get people to install the app, to download it. It's a lot of data volume, and there's a bit of a, let's put it mildly, it's a convenience gap. So if you actually go through a browser-based application and you use something like, for instance, Google Business View, you have the added benefit that the download is very quick, the experience is very seamless. And because Google actually offers a lot of interesting APIs, you're actually able to put interfaces on top of that. So you can actually show on your website, on your branded page, wherever you want to show it, you can actually show an integrated business view of your space. And in that, you can once again integrate a navigation and some overlays that give information about products, etc. So I'll show you how this works. Guys, if I could have the, thank you. Okay, so this basically is what's going on my iPad, just to show you. So this is just a standard spherical perspective of a room. I'll try and do this a little smoothly so it's not too painful for you to watch on the big screen. So I can look up and I can look down, and I can also just swipe through the room. And what we did in this case was that we didn't put information behind every product. We just did this as a showcase to show what you can actually do with it. So by clicking on an item, I can actually show this item in a lot of detail. And as you can see, there's a buy button. In this case, that's not actually linked to anything, but it's actually very easy to link this to an e-commerce store. So that's not really an issue. And the lovely thing about this is that you can also give your clients much more information and much more detailed information than you would usually do in any random app. So in this case, the brand we did this together with, it's a small Berlin-based label, and they do a lot of artist collaborations. So right here, I can go through different information, I can watch images, and then I could also start a video. This is just kind of, I don't have sound on this right now, and I'll just jump through it, but I just want to show you how this works. So basically, any kind of content that you could integrate in a normal website, you can also integrate into a virtual reality experience. And I'm just showing this to you on the iPad because it's much easier to actually convert this to the big screen than the VR. But if you feel like it, you can come up after the presentation and have a look at what it actually feels like to be in that room and to look at things. So just to give you another example, in this case, that would be another fashion item. This is actually a nice showcase for what it is that fast forward imaging does. We do these transparently cropped 360 photos. And in this case, I can then also interact with it. I can do a pinch zoom, etc., etc. So could we go back to the other screen? Thank you. Super. So that's why I'm saying the possibilities of what you can actually do in virtual reality are absolutely limitless. You can really grasp your client, really grasp your customer, really bring them into your world. You can put music with it, you can do pretty much whatever you want, but you have the benefit that people are actually inside your world. So I could, for instance, sit on my sofa and go and shop at the Chloe flagship store in Tokyo, and then I go like, okay, so I don't really like the Tokyo store, I'll just hop over to London instead. If you look at how brands actually use flagship stores and boutiques to really create a different experience for their clients, virtual reality is their way of actually bringing this experience to the customer, to the client, inside their living room. As I said, from the technological perspective, creating these applications is surprisingly simple. All you have to have is the content, plus obviously the room or the world that you want to show. And I think that's really the key question you have to answer for yourselves. If looking at it from the perspective of a brand, what is it? Which environment is it that really conveys best what you want to tell your people about your brand or about your collection? You could easily change this from one collection to the next. You could put 360 video in, which we haven't tried yet, but I know it's relatively easily possible. It's just, it comes with a few timing issues and stuff like that. But you can actually put people inside a moving image and then tell your stories, which is why I think this is a very, very exciting area to be in right now. So that's really my little blurb. Any questions that I could answer about the topic?
One second.
Oh,
hold on.
Hi, I'm Fabienne. I just wanted to know, like, how long does it take to create this kind of interface? Like, really simple, and you have, like, just a few items that you can click on? Like, how long?
It's actually, the actual development time is relatively low. I mean, basically, once you have all the content, I mean, okay, let's just go through it step by step. So you need to produce, let's say, a room. Let's say we want to capture this room. Depending on which kind of technology you use for that, we're talking about anything between half an hour and, let's say, 3 hours. It depends a little bit on how many standpoints you want to have. In the example I showed you, it's just a spherical room from just one standpoint. If you use a technology where you're actually able to go through the room, like Google Business View, you want to have more standpoints than just one. And that's, as I said, roughly maximum, let's say maximum 5 or 6 hours for a space like this. Capturing the objects or providing the content obviously depends on what you actually want to show. When we capture an object in 360 degrees, the actual capturing process takes 5 minutes per item, so that's easy. And then the programming, depending a little bit on whether you want to have it inside an application, that's a separate unit, that would be, depending on the development environment, the development framework, I would say probably between 1 and 3 days. But if you go through something like a Google Business View overlay, we're at the moment working with a partner who actually do that within half a day to a day development work, because they've developed a framework that actually makes it relatively easy to integrate content into that. Any more questions?
Hello. How about community building? You've just told us that we could go to Tokyo to a shop and go shopping there, but how about those people who are in that shop at the same time on a virtual base? Can we connect to them maybe one day or even today already?
I think one day definitely, and that day is not far away. It's already very easy to integrate social media with virtual reality applications, so the connect is already there. The actual interaction with the community would have a gaming aspect. So you would definitely go for a specific app development in that case. And depending on how that app is structured, that would be relatively easy. The only thing you then need to think about is the whole question of avatars. So you would have to work out how you want to deal with that. Do you want to give people an actual avatar? Do you just want to have a chat functionality or a video conferencing or stuff like that? It's pretty much like any basic website. You can integrate a lot of different things. You just have to kind of figure out what it actually is that you want to do. But we're not very far from that.
Where was the other question?
Hi, my name is Arno Selhorst from Sapien Nitro in Cologne. I have a question regarding the tangibility of all of this. I mean, I've seen so many VR speeches right now, and it's all fine and it's all fun, but exactly when you talk about fashion and people at the POS, I mean, they want to touch the fabrics, they want to, try them on, etc. So to be honest, I don't really see the advantage of VR in this specific application. Maybe you can elaborate on the advantages a little bit more.
I think it's a question that has a lot of different aspects to it. So one thing, basically, I think the main advantage of the whole VR experience is the fact that you can actually, it's a more immersive experience, and that makes it a more emotional experience than just a flat screen experience. So that's just from a brand standpoint, and that's not fashion specific, that's a general thing. Although, as we all know, fashion brands tend to put a lot of effort into giving their consumers a very interesting and very challenging experience sometimes. In terms of the actual objects, in terms of tactility and haptic, I think that, for instance, something that VR invites is to have very high definition and high resolution imagery that actually gives you a very close-up view of materials, but obviously it is only a view of the material, you can't touch it. I know that there is some development in terms of creating gloves that allow you to kind of interact with magnetic fields, etc., etc. I think that is very interesting from a sci-fi perspective, and probably in 5 to 10 years we'll see very interesting development there, but we're not there yet. So it is a purely visual and audible experience at the moment, not a tactile experience. I completely agree with you. Does that? Thank you. Anyone else? Questions?
Hello.
Hey.
Is it already proven that companies sell more products by using this technology?
No. As far as I know, there isn't actually anyone yet who is actively using this. We are at the moment producing 2 showcases for our first 2 clients, but I don't know of anyone yet who has actually integrated VR with the shop yet.
Okay.
So there wouldn't really be any data to be found on that. But I'm very excited to see some tests and some results about those. So.
Is there a possibility to see your own body? Because, I mean, if you have clothes and you maybe want to try them on, like, you can't really see your own body. So this, is there...
It's the avatar question once again. It's a similar thing. I mean, basically, there are different VR hardware options, and some of them do have integrated cameras. So you could actually transfer an image from the kind of outlooking camera into the VR as well. But I think that also we're not quite there yet. I think it's going to take a little while until that really gives you an experience that is the experience you'd like to have. I mean, obviously what you could always do is you could get yourself body scanned and then have that converted into an avatar. And that could be used to actually try on fashion. Although I must admit that I'm very hesitant about the whole idea of a virtual fitting room. I mean, obviously there are virtual mirror concepts and virtual shopping, fitting room concepts. I'm hesitant as to whether people are really going to use that. Because I think, as a little bit as we were saying earlier, it's a question of more gaming than actual real fitting, and I think that plays together with the whole tactile thing. Until we are actually able to create realistic 3D models of fashion that take into account all the different details of the actual build of the fabric. Let's use a standard jacket as an example. If you have a standard men's jacket, you have something like 5 different materials that decide how the jacket fits and how the fabric moves and how it responds to a body. I mean, you've got all the padding and everything. Until we're actually able to really convert that into a 3-dimensional model that behaves like that jacket would behave if you wore it, you won't have a realistic experience. And I think that letdown of seeing something in the virtual world, like when we see perfectly retouched product photos in an e-commerce store, and then the stuff gets delivered and you take it out of the box and it's a shapeless, crinkly thing, or you put it on and it just behaves completely different on you. That disappointment is going to drive returns, but not really actually give you a great brand experience. So I'm very hesitant about the whole virtual fitting room concept. Anyone else? If that is so, if anyone would like to, as I said, you're very welcome to come and try the app that I just showed you on the iPad. Otherwise, thank you very much and have a lovely day.